Now we know that the temple that the Lord is building is a spiritual temple, a heavenly temple, and yet the Jews have to fulfill the last 7-year time of Jacob's trouble, in which they will build another temple. And I wanted to talk about this. I thought you'd find this very interesting, as I do. And this is 4 unique characteristics of the third temple. In the 25th year of the Babylonian exile, God showed a vision of the future temple to the prophet Ezekiel. Yet the second temple was built only partially based on the description in the book of Ezekiel, as this prophetic description was reserved for the third and final temple. The Midrash tells us that when God commanded Ezekiel to describe the dimensions of the temple to the Jewish people, Ezekiel asked, "Master of the universe, why are you telling me to go and tell Israel the form of the house? They are now in exile in the land of our enemies. Is there anything they can do about it? Let them be until they return from the exile. Then I will go and inform them." God answered, "Should the construction of my house be ignored because my children are in exile? The study of the design of the holy temple, as detailed in the Torah, can be equated to its actual construction. Go tell them to study the form of the holy temple. As a reward for their study and their occupation with it, I will consider it as if they actually built the holy temple." Based on the above Midrash, the Lubavitcher Rebbe strongly promoted learning about the building of the temple, especially during the time of year in which we mourn its destruction, which, both temples were destroyed on the 9th of Av, as destiny would have it. Thus, we present an outline of some distinct characteristics of the third temple. Note, however, that Maimonides writes that the design of the Messianic temple, though mentioned in the book of Ezekiel, is not explicit or explained. Okay, so they say it will be big. The third temple will be many times larger than the previous 2 temples. For example, the area set aside for the second temple complex, or what is known as the Temple Mount, was 500 by 500 cubits, and each cubit being approximately 18.9 inches. In the third temple, it will be 3,000 by 3,000 cubits, i.e., it will be 36 times larger, or 9 million square cubits, approximately 22,325,625 square feet, or 512.5 acres. Then we see that it will be square. The basic division of the temple into different sections, such as the Kodesh, or Holy, and the Kodesh HaKodeshim, Holy of Holies, will be the same as the previous temples. However, the section called the Ezrat Nashim in the second temple and outer courtyard in Ezekiel's prophecy will have a very different layout in the third temple, whereas in the second temple, this section was a 135 square cubit area in front of the Azera. The latter is equivalent to the inner courtyard in Ezekiel's prophecy. In the third temple, this area will be 312 by 317 cubits and completely surround, almost like a square, the Azera. My birthday is 3/17. That's interesting. So that's one of the measurements of the third temple. Next, iron is in. Iron was not used in the building of the first 2 temples, as the verse states. The house, when it was in building, was built of stone finished at the quarry, and there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. Why? Because iron is used in the fashioning of weapons, used to shorten life, and the purpose of the temple was to make peace between man and God, thereby lengthening one's life. Thus, it's improper to build a life-sustaining structure with a material that is its very antithesis. Well, interesting that Jesus bore the curse and bore the nails of iron right here in his wrists at the base of his hand, on both hands, of course. and his feet. However, the Lubavitcher Rebbe explains at length that in the Messianic era, when swords will be beaten into plowshares and iron will be used only for the positive, this prohibition of using metal in the structure of the temple will no longer apply. The use of iron in the third temple will not just be a symptom of the peace that will reign, but it is symbolic of the Messianic era in general. The Hebrew word for iron, which is the arizal, explains is an acronym for the 4 wives of Jacob from whom the Jewish nation is descended. This corresponds to the mystic's explanation that in the era of redemption, women will be on a higher level than men. Yes. I wonder about that, but that's funny. We'll go there often. The verse at the end of Isaiah states, "It shall be from new moon to new moon and from Sabbath to Sabbath that all flesh shall come to prostrate themselves before me, says the Lord." The Midrash explains that although during the eras of the first 2 temples, the Jews made a pilgrimage to the temple only 3 times a year, in the Messianic era, we will do so every first of the new month. The Midrash goes on to explain that this was impossible to do during the first 2 temples, but that in the era of the third temple, we will have clouds that will transport us to Jerusalem and the temple, enabling us to visit the Holy Temple on a much more frequent basis. May the merit of learning about the building of the temple stand us in good stead, and may we merit the rebuilding of the third temple speedily in our days. So this is the Jewish rabbinical viewpoint from Chabad.org. And I find that to be so interesting. In the era of the third temple, we will have clouds that will transport us to Jerusalem and the temple, enabling us to visit it. So isn't that interesting that we have the Messiah who's going to bring the Messianic era, and that's the true Messiah, and he says, "Behold, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye at the last trump, the dead in Messiah shall rise first, and then those of us who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord." So we know in the wilderness, the Hebrews, the cloud came down, covered the Hebrews, and it would lift up and they would journey. So the cloud is going to cover us, lift up, and we're going to take a journey with the Lord, and we'll always be with the Lord, and he will transport us in the glory cloud wherever he's taking us. So I find that interesting that it says that they believe that these clouds will transport them and to Jerusalem and the temple. That's really a fascinating fact, I think. So those are considered to be the 4 unique characteristics of the third temple. And let me just reel them off one more time. It will be big. It will be square. Iron is in. And what's the last one? We'll go there often. You know, before my mom passed, we were sitting there eating dinner one night in the dining room, and Mom said, when the rapture happens, or we come back from, you know, going in the rapture, resurrection, do you think that we'll come live here in our house, or do you think we'll go live in Jerusalem? And I said, I don't know. Well, now, unless the Jubilee causes us to get our house back at that point, I guess we'll have to go to Jerusalem. So the cloud probably will, you know, it says he's going to come down the same way he went up, which was in the glory clouds, and the clouds received him out of their sight. So he's going to come back down. He's going to put his feet down on the Mount of Olives, and the land is going to split like the Red Sea crossing, and he's going to go up on the Temple Mount, and he's going to claim the throne of David forever. So this is really interesting. I just think that's so similar to us being in the cloud and being transported. So this is what the rabbis think about their third temple. And this is what they think happens in the Messianic age. Anyway, I thought you'd find that fascinating. Interesting details, I believe, that I just wanted to share tonight. So I'll see you in the next video. Shalom for now. Thanks for your support, and thank you for watching the video and giving a thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you later on. Good night, everybody.